to be always state governance. It can be self-regulation, it can be regulated by the market with some incentives, it can be co-regulation and so on. And so for this, I developed a toolbox, yeah, how to do it, and we did it in some cases for very specific questions. And that's my argument. You can't do it on a general level. You can't say you regulate now on social media. You have to see what is really the risk involved. Yeah? And then you can see with this, and we need, in order for this risk assessment, we need this empirical data. And based on that, there has to be then also a political decision. What has to be done?
But is the perceived relevance enough to assess the actual risk? That's what I'm asking myself.
No, it's not. It's not. But it's part of it. It's part of it. It's definitely part of it. Yeah. But it needs more. That's for sure. Yeah. But there isn't any. Yeah. I mean, there's not one way to do it. There are different approaches now. But what I would like to mention, next to this risk-based approach. Many are going this human rights-based approach, which is very strong in artificial intelligence, and they don't care so much about the single risk or so. So for them, these are the human rights in the center. Then there's another, this ethics-based approach, yeah, and then the fourth would be that you have a principle-based approach, I would call it. So this is now also, this will be published in December, where I'm trying to summarize these different approaches for the governance of algorithms. And in this principle-based approach, you would say, we need transparency, we need, for instance, we need, what is it against accountability? That would be the best examples for that. So you can see there are very different approaches. Yeah, I'm arguing here for this risk-based approach. Yeah, but on the EU level, I was invited there to present this. This was presented at the EU at that time, and they said no, but we rather go for this human rights-based approach. Yeah, this is our approach. The American approach would be this and that. So this is also an interesting topic. Yeah, but this is a political decision. This is a political decision. And you can see also very different approaches. For instance, Germany has a culture to be very fast with regulation. Yeah. Switzerland.
I'm from Germany.
I
probably
thought so.
Yeah.
So they have the culture to be very fast, and the laws that came in place there about social media, so I think are not appropriate. Yeah, they are more, and this is the danger if you don't have this empirical basis, that you have populist activities, and you have also symbolic activities in this area, and that's happening, and this can't happen that easily if you're presenting these results, if you're doing this sort of research. And so there are cultures of regulation, the culture in Switzerland where I'm now, I'm originally from Austria, they also like to regulate. In Switzerland they don't like to regulate. Yeah, and we also asked the population there, we made a survey and asked, do we need more internet regulation? People say no. Yeah, so it's a culture behind it, but it's also different sort of symbolic politics behind it. So, and that's one way to bring it a little bit more on a so-called objective level, but it's only one step.
A quick question. It was not my original question, but follow up on what you said right now. Do you consider the Swiss society as more conservative comparing to the Austrian or German one, for example? When it comes to those topics, I mean.
No. I mean, you can't call it conservative, but it's more. This is a cultural issue, but Switzerland is often compared with the culture to the United States. Yeah, in this culture of this being liberal, in that sense. Yeah, they're very conservative in other parts. Yeah, when it comes to their values. Yeah, the traditional values and so. But in many cases, and also regarding regulation and economics or so, they are very liberal. They don't want central governments. They want to have their vote, so it's a different culture. And that's why you see they are skeptical if the state interferes, and it takes much more until they say, let the state interfere. Yeah. So this is really a big difference.
Yeah. So my original question was, first of all, I think that related to the different comments that my colleague said, I think that running this research across different countries and looking at the results across different cultures will be very interesting to compare, and also to leverage that to correlate between this and the different regulations within each country, and how the regulations could impact people decisions about leveraging different algorithms. So that would be one point. Another point that I would find interesting would be to look at this through time. So take the same questions, see what would be the results next year and the year after, and with the evolution of internet and the intrusion of those online services, it will be very interesting to see that change. Yep.
Okay. So one thing is, I would be happy if somebody does start this sort of research in Israel. It would be great. If you do it, it's always, I think, a matter of money, of support. But I think many want to go in this direction, what I hear in my talks. So the other thing is, what did you say? What was the other question? Was
over time.
Over time, yeah. So we do, for instance, we ask now. I'm doing this so-called World Internet Project, where I'm doing every 2 years. I'm doing also a representative study, asking the people on their internet use on the one hand, and also on attitudes towards the internet. And there we also ask for this regulation, and this didn't change. Not essentially since 2011. I'm doing that in Switzerland. This didn't change. Other things changed with the scandals or so, that they now are more aware of surveillance, a little bit, also not strongly, but what they do, their activities, they changed. They changed their activities, they are now more searching, for terms or so, if it's correct or not, they're trying, they're testing if it's the right information, and many other things.
That's a multi-country study, or just in Switzerland and World Internet?
The World Internet Project is a multi-country. There are 20 to 30 countries involved, but the problem is it's not centrally funded. So every country has to get its money. So I have also a partner here in Israel, but they also couldn't make the representative study. But so we're working together on very specific issues. In that case, on the impact of internet use and well-being. So that's what you together here. But there are 20 to 30 countries. We are meeting every year, next time in Zurich, and we have 2/3 of the questionnaire are the same questions, and 1/3 is where every country tries to find out new things. As I told you, the chilling effects, for instance, I included now in the study to get to new results. There was him, and then please.
Okay, thank you. The data is very interesting. I think it's both interesting and significant. I would ask you 2 questions. First one is, how do you address the agent-institution relations of the services? Because some services are more institutionalized than others, and then I would suggest that the difference should be seen in the data. And the second question is, can you extract geopolitical data, information from the survey, and look at, for example, how liberals voted and how liberals address the algorithmic services, and how the conservatives address it?
We have this inside the last point, and there's no pattern. We didn't find a pattern. We maybe have to look again, but the first analysis showed there's no pattern. We expected that. It didn't happen. The first part I didn't quite understand. I'm not sure. What do you mean by institutionalized? Which is
some services are present over 20, 30 years, and some are more premature. So I would expect that there will be a difference. Certainly different. And
we didn't look at that, but we could. That would be hard to do because
the perception and the awareness. Then the scale of awareness would change over both population and over time with certain services.
But looking at awareness or so, for instance, people are most aware, that's what they already see. And we will come out with 4 specific reports out of the survey in the beginning of next year. Yeah. So with all the data from different areas, for all this, also for the practices and also the awareness. But what we already saw is the biggest awareness for algorithmic selection is based on computational advertising. And this is also one of the biggest applications. So the biggest applications are search and computational advertising. They are present in most of the services, at least as part of it. Yeah. And the other people are getting aware that something is happening. In many other parts, people are not aware. We have been surprised, I don't know if it's right in time, only 20% of the people in Switzerland know that Facebook is not doing that with people, is doing the selections of your timeline or of your, that it's done by algorithms. So only 20% have been aware of that. So this was surprising, for instance. So we also in this survey we presented some things, some facts or so, and then we let them rate if it's correct or wrong, and the results haven't been good. Yeah, so that's really surprising. But I can also see it often, also when I talk to the press or so in Switzerland, that also the journalists they are not aware of what's really happening and what's really going on. So the awareness is in our circles. We think now we are discussing at every conference now. It's always the topic, but the general public is still not very aware of many of the things that are happening and all of the risks that are present. Yeah, only privacy issues are now, surveillance is now a topic, but many other parts not.
I wanted to make one more comment about the cross-cultural differences, and I think in that area, Israel may be an extreme case. I want to mention I was in a meeting a couple of years ago with the Minister of Justice and senior media figures, and the subject of the meeting was loss of trust, public trust in the justice system, and they were trying to assess how it happened. And in that meeting, they brought up surveys which showed that people under 40 in Israel do not consume news from traditional sources, do not consume them from online outlets, but from social media. That means their primary source of news is social media, and their perception of the justice system, likewise, is primarily from social media, and they were discussing the possibility of regulation, and they came out to the conclusion that it will be a hopeless case if they try to regulate it. They would need to use some drastic totalitarian measures if they try to regulate it.
Look, I don't know Israel, I don't know the figures here and the surveys, but in general I know these studies are done also by the Oxford Institute. They're doing this sort of studies, and as far as I remember now, it's more or less it's different from country to country. In Switzerland, it's 20 to 30% are using social media to get news. 20 to 30%.
But age-wise,
and also it's not that they only use it. And I know that in the literature now, many write they are deprived people of information. So I totally disagree with that. Because then they take, I saw presentations and they said for young people, what do they expect? That young people are having printed paper, I don't know, that they pay for that and have it every day in their home or so. It's really wrong expectation that, and you have to look at the age groups, how it differs, but most of the time, and that's what we're looking at the media repertoire. And if you look at the repertoire, it's bigger than social media. And even though if you look at social media, they are not produced by social media. As I said, they're intermediaries. They are just squeezing in the middle. They are not inventing this information. So it's the same information. What you have, it's only recommended by other people, by your friends. So I don't see this as drastic as it's presented most of the time. I see the problem, but it's not that drastic, and we can improve awareness, we can improve skills, and this would help a big part to solve a big part of these problems. So I'm not so don't panic because of this situation with statistics.
So I think one question is whether you have any clue why people don't think, don't think of print as relevant or social media as relevant, right? Why? What explains their? Do you have any follow-up or any indications? I mean, about why do they disregard? I mean, this is especially if you say that, if you assume, and I think you're right, that it's the same information on social media and print. I mean, sometimes you read on Facebook something that was on The Guardian, right? It doesn't really. So the question is, why do you trust it, or do you think it's relevant when you read it on The Guardian, but when it's in social media, it's...
I think that these sort of articles, what people get, Guardian articles on social media, they are such a minority. Because here they are asked what information they get on social media. It's not only now news that are recommended coming from newspapers or other sources. So they are thinking about the information they get and if it's influencing. So these articles of quality newspapers are such a small part of it, and this is reflected in the answers. So that's what I would see. And then we have been surprised in the beginning why especially the youngest group says most important are now the offline world. That's because, I mean, in that age group they're still very dependent on the opinion of their parents. So I mean, we shouldn't underestimate the influence on political opinion formation in that age between 16 and 20, and that would also raise the discussion if it's okay, like in Austria, that they let people vote starting from 16 and so on, because it's very strongly still influenced by the parents in this case. But it's changing strongly also, as we can show in the next stage.
No, but to the question of why people don't try, I mean, this is like...
Why they don't trust social media? I mean, for instance, we asked what is the percentage of correct information in different media, and it was always they trusted most in Switzerland now again. Highly trusted was public television, the highest. Then it was government's information. Then it was print newspapers. Then it was online newspapers. And very end again social media. Why? Because that's what most people do. I mean, it's also not. This is also not the purpose of it. Maybe we should see it like that. I mean, it's not the major purpose of social media to get correct information. Maybe it's not so much information. It's strong. But we also can. I could show you for socializing, which was also interesting. The results. I don't know if this is entertainment.
Switzerland may be a very special case.
So you see, here for socializing, that means keeping friends and getting new friends. Again, offline contacts, but then it's very strong is online messenger. So in that case, so on offline calls, events, again, voice, Skype, social media also not that strong. For keeping friends and getting new friends, it's not strong at all. You can see here it's 2.39 out of the scale from 1 to 5. Again, so we don't really know what all together, I mean, and that's also very hard to judge. We have also the data then for different specific services. So it's a difference for Instagram, it's different for Facebook, it's different for Twitter, I think, and then maybe you have to take a look at that as well.
So what are they using it for? I'm just like wondering. So it's like if it's not relevant for commerce and for opinions, if it's socializing, what is it good for? I mean, why do they use it?
That's a good question.
I
don't know. I can't.
But isn't exactly that the problem, that like the news consumption changes and people go online, go on social media, and they consume news without even knowing it? because they scroll through their timeline, and of course they are news, and
Not in
they
every
don't
timeline.
even know.
Not
And
in every
what I would suggest, maybe people just say in these answers what they think or what they wish it should be,
Yeah,
and they say,
desirable.
like,
That's what I said.
maybe that would also be
Yeah.
my answer. If I say, like, what I put trust in is like my newspaper, and I don't trust the social media, but I'm not sure if I'm not consuming more news by Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Isn't that like also an interesting question? How people consume news, and do they deliberately consume it, or is it more like a subtle way of getting information?
So, but that's one point, and we know it from psychology. Sure, the more you see, it has an impact. So it's definitely also one part of it. Yeah. So I don't say that this is the whole truth, and this is only one part and one tradition.
And what about education? I mean,
Strong higher
more
education,
people,
less importance of
social
algorithmic
media.
selection service, also social media. Yeah, it's shown for sure. But education, there's also one problem, for instance, that the highest usage is with younger people. They can't have the highest education. Yeah, I mean they are 16, so they can't have a university degree. So this is a problem in this case. Yeah, so we have to keep that in mind. That's why I didn't show you the slide now on that, because I had to make the choice. For age, it's quite obvious. It's more interesting. But the highest effects have been by education. Yeah. So forget about this group 16 to 25, but then you could say then it counts and that it makes sense. And still there, from that age group, we can also see the difference. Higher education, less importance, less relevance for social media, and altogether for algorithmic selection services. Okay, I think all answers are given. Yeah, I tried my best. Thank you very much.
Thank you.